Edson Arantes do Nascimento, known to the world as Pelé, was born on October 23, 1940, in the small town of Três Corações, located in the state of Minas Gerais, Brazil. He was the first child of João Ramos do Nascimento, known as Dondinho, and Celeste Arantes. The family was humble and devoutly religious. Dondinho, once a promising footballer himself, had his career cut short by a severe knee injury. With limited education and no real savings, Dondinho struggled to provide for his family, working odd jobs after his football dream was crushed. The burden of financial hardship settled heavily on the household. Pelé's childhood was marked by poverty. They moved to the city of Bauru in São Paulo state when he was still young, in hopes of finding better opportunities. There, they lived in a modest home, often struggling to make ends meet. Pelé remembered days when there was not enough food, and he and his siblings would go to bed hungry. They couldn't afford toys, so he and the neighborhood kids improvised. He made his first football by stuffing old socks with newspaper and tying them with string. That makeshift ball became his gateway to joy and his connection to a world beyond poverty. He was nicknamed Dico by his family, but the name Pelé emerged during his school days. Ironically, it began as a mispronunciation. Young Edson once referred to the goalkeeper Pelé as Pelé, and the other children teased him for it. Despite his protests, the nickname stuck. At first, he hated it, even getting into fights over it. But over time, the name Pelé would become synonymous with greatness. From the beginning, it was clear Pelé had a natural talent. He would play barefoot in the streets with other kids for hours on end. His mother was often worried, not just about him playing too much, but about him following in his father's footsteps and ending up injured or disappointed. But his father saw the spark. Dondinho began to coach him, teaching him techniques he once used on the field, including how to head the ball with precision, how to feint and dribble, and most importantly, how to read the game. By the age of 10, Pelé was already outclassing boys much older than him. He joined a local youth team called 7 de Setembro, and later another called Ameriquinha. Despite playing with worn-out shoes, or sometimes even barefoot, he consistently scored multiple goals per game. But life off the field remained difficult. To support the family, Pelé shined shoes at train stations and sold peanuts in the street. Each coin he earned was precious, but his dreams of playing professional football never faded. When he was 11 years old, a major turning point arrived. A former Brazilian international named Waldemar de Brito noticed Pelé's immense talent during a local tournament. De Brito was impressed not just by the boy's skill, but also by his intelligence, vision, and work ethic. He approached Pelé's parents and told him, "This boy is going to be the best football player in the world." Though hesitant, Pelé's parents agreed to let their son move to São Paulo with De Brito to pursue his football training more seriously. At age 15, Pelé was brought to Santos FC, a prominent club with a professional setup. When he arrived at the training ground, the coaches were skeptical. He was small, skinny, and seemed underdeveloped compared to other players. But when he stepped onto the field, he stunned them all. His first touches, his dribbles, and his ability to anticipate movements were nothing short of extraordinary. Within a short time, he was promoted to the first team. On September 7, 1956, Pelé made his professional debut for Santos and scored. He was just 15 years old. From that moment on, his rise was meteoric. The next year, he became the top scorer in the Campeonato Paulista, Brazil's main state championship. He was still just 16. National newspapers began referring to him as a prodigy. His unique blend of technique, agility, power, and football IQ was unlike anything Brazil had seen. By 1958, Pelé was called up to the Brazilian national team. At just 17 years old, he was the youngest player at the World Cup in Sweden. He didn't play the first few matches due to a knee injury, but once cleared, he exploded onto the scene. In the quarterfinals, he scored a hat trick against France. In the final, he scored twice against the host nation Sweden, including a now iconic goal where he flicked the ball over a defender and volleyed it into the net. Brazil won its first World Cup, and Pelé, tears running down his face, became the youngest ever world champion. He had gone from a boy who cleaned shoes to a global sensation in just a few years. After the 1958 World Cup, offers from European clubs poured in. Real Madrid, Juventus, Manchester United, they all wanted the Brazilian wonder kid. But the Brazilian government declared Pelé a national treasure, effectively banning him from transferring abroad. He would remain with Santos FC, where he built a legendary career. With Santos, Pelé won 6 Brazilian championships, 2 Copa Libertadores, the South American equivalent of the Champions League, and 2 Intercontinental Cups, defeating the best teams from Europe. Pelé continued to dominate international football. He played in the 1962 World Cup in Chile, but after an early injury, he missed most of the tournament. Still, Brazil won again. In 1966, he was targeted by brutal fouls and injuries, and Brazil was eliminated early, a bitter disappointment. But in 1970, in Mexico, Pelé returned with vengeance. Now 29, and surrounded by one of the most talented teams in football history, he led Brazil to its 3rd World Cup title. His assists, goals, and leadership were masterful. The image of Pelé leaping into the arms of teammate Jairzinho after the final whistle became one of the most iconic in sports history.